Ahoy there, folks. I'm Captain Benzie, and welcome back to another video for Influence, the new economic space simulation game being produced by Unstoppable Games. In this series, I'm walking you through how I'm setting up my operations here on Adalia Prime during the pre-release of the game. This hopefully will give you an idea of what kind of things you can be doing when the game goes global very, very soon. In today's video, I want to talk about using spacecraft because, oh boy, this is one of the coolest things about Influence. I'm very excited to take this a step further, but we're going to look at the basics today. I was gifted a small light transport by one of the developers in order to showcase this, but we are going to talk about how you produce them as well. So hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, consider supporting the channel on Patreon, PayPal, or by becoming a channel member, and, well, let's jump right in. So first things first, when it comes to spacecraft, we need to either buy them or build them. And if you want to build a spacecraft, you're going to need to construct a shipyard. Now, a shipyard is obviously turning various bits of metals and other materials into ship pieces, like construction manifests. Then from there, the shipyard can also combine all of the different ship pieces together into a ship. It's also one of the only buildings in the game that has two different slots to be doing things. So it can be producing a ship whilst also constructing additional ship modules, whereas, say, a factory, a refinery, or bioreactor can only be doing one thing at a time. That makes a shipyard very, very unique. Beyond this as well, we also have the spaceport. Now, the spaceport as a building allows the larger spacecraft to land on a planet. You don't need one at the start if you're just using light transports, as I'll showcase in a moment, but when you start moving up to the medium and larger ships, you will need a spaceport to dock at those. And one of the big advantages of a spaceport, again, it's going to be a fairly niche building. Not everyone is going to need or want one of these, but it does allow people to land a lot faster on a planet's surface, on an asteroid's surface rather than perhaps having to wait large queue times at other people's spaceports, which may also be a fair distance away. So it's the kind of thing that if you are going to be using a lot of spacecraft, you might eventually want to invest in building your own spaceport, especially if there is a group of you who are working together and using these spacecraft to move around. So what does a spacecraft actually do? Well, I've got a light transport here. I can't click on the zoom at the lot at the moment because when a spacecraft is landed, the landed asset is not currently fully in the game. You can kind of see what it'll look like here. Once it's in space, then I can have a look at it. Obviously, flying a craft requires a pilot. This crew does have a pilot on it. This is my one of everything crew, but the main reason that I've got this is to be able to move goods around. If I decide that this little enclave here has reached its potential, I can harvest a lot of water here, but perhaps I want to find somewhere else that I can extract a load of other things at a much higher percentage. I could move elsewhere on Adalia Prime and start setting up a separate enclave. The trouble is that obviously surface transfers can take a long time, right? Well, that's why we have cargo on these craft. So I can actually go into the ship inventory here, and I can see that it's currently carrying 250 tons of cement, 4.1 tons of food, a load of steel beams, and a load of steel sheets. This is very useful for construction. But what if I wanted to get a bit more cement in there? Well, I can go send to, select inventory, repository there, and we're going to go into the light transport cargo, and I'm looking for a load more cement. Typically, it's in my other repository. I should give these better names for this reason, but I could therefore go in here, and that would be over capacity to send the whole load through, so I would have to send a smaller amount across. I'm not going to actually send at the moment anyway, but you'd basically do a surface transfer, move stuff into the hold, and then again, I can kind of go send to, other way around here, light transport 5, I can then send that to, wrong way around, send from, that's what I'm looking for, light transport 5 cargo to my repository, and I could, for example, get rid of the steel sheets, take those out, and drop those into my repository over here, my warehouse. Obviously, I've just called it a repository. I'll do a slight transfer there, and you'll see that basically this is going to then take the goods from that ship, and it'll pop it into my warehouse, transferring it across. So you can use these as a shuttle. Now, they don't just necessarily shuttle goods around on an asteroid surface as well. I can't click on it because it's bugged at the moment. This is due to be fixed in a very short while, but there is a passenger manifest. So of course you can have the crew of the particular vessel, which are going to be flying it around and moving it. Obviously, having multiple pilots and things in there. I think also scientists have a reduced fuel consumption or something as one of their abilities. I do forget all of those off the top of my head, but certainly having pilots is going to allow you to move these ships a little bit faster, consuming less fuel and less wear on the vessel as well. So do take a look if you're getting into doing all of this kind of stuff about maybe hiring some more pilots into a crew. Now, you can load up a load of goods, load up some crews onto your ship, then we just hit launch ship. Now, from here, there are two ways we can do this. There's the propulsive launch, thruster launch, and the tug hopper-assisted launch. Now, you'll notice the difference here is the amount of fuel that this uses and the time it takes. Now, a hopper-assisted launch is going to take me 9 hours and nearly 10 hours, basically, 10 minutes shy of 9 hours. But it's not going to use any of my fuel to get me into orbit. On the other hand, the thruster launch is going to be instant, but it is going to take up 25.6 tons of my fuel, which is 1% of all the fuel that I have loaded. You can also have a look here at what's on the ship, how that's all working there as well. But I'm just going to go straight into this now. I'm going to go with the propulsive launch just because I want to showcase how it works. We can also have a look at delta V usage as well when it comes to the fuel. But for now, we are just going to launch this ship into orbit to showcase how these can move. Now, obviously, I've got to authenticate that transaction, wait for it to do so. It's going to take a moment, and then this will launch instantly into orbit around Adalia Prime. And this is also the opportunity I have then to showcase what the ships look like, because once it's in orbit, this little zoom to lot bit down here that will show you the graphics of the ship does actually work. So I need to click on light transport in orbit, and there should be a way to showcase that. Oh, there we are. I just had to click and wait. Patience, Benzie. And there it is. There is my ship currently in orbit around Adalia Prime. I do love these ships. Yes, okay, they're not necessarily the most ridiculously over-the-top sci-fi of other intellectual properties out there. You know, we're not looking at, say, the curved wonders of the Galente or the rusty Minmatar. We're not looking at something like Battlestar Galactica or, you know, Star Wars, you know, any of these sort of high sci-fi and high fantasy in space kind of things. This is very much real science. It doesn't need to be aerodynamic, it's in space, but you've got things like all the different compartments displayed on here. You can see the thrusters working, you can hear me losing my voice, you can even see all of the different arrays. I'm not sure if these are like radar arrays or if they're solar panels or solar sails or what, but that right there is a light transport. So we're going to come back out of this. Now imagine that I've landed this previously next to a marketplace somewhere else, and I have then loaded it up with goods, and I want to bring it back now to be able to unload at these two marketplaces here. Basically, I'm going to set it down where it was. When you are on the crew that is flying a light transport and you click on an empty lot anywhere, in addition to the usual form lot agreement and planned building site, you also get this new middle one of land ship. It's really as simple as that. So I could decide to land it up here, but I'm going to come down here because it makes a nicer shape. That's literally the only reason I'm doing it. So we go to land ship, onto the empty lot, and again, I can either use propulsive, which is going to use 1% of my loaded fuel again, or I can use the tug hopper assisted landing, but it's going to take a lot longer. For the purposes of this demonstration, I am happy to showcase just using fuel. I've got enough fuel that I can make this work and showcase it quite comfortably. So we are going to dock on surface. That's then going to come down here once that finishes processing, and you'll see the icon, the ship icon, there it is. Then appears we are now landed on the surface, which means we get all these functions back. The ability to send from the ship to a warehouse or to a building, send from a warehouse to the ship. We have the emergency mode when you're in orbit. We're not going to worry about that. We'll talk about that in a future video when it comes to actual spacefaring. You have the ability to eject the crew, which is basically kick your crew off the ship and into like a what they called a habitat over there. And again, we can force eject passenger crews. If, for example, you've opened your ship up to public passengers and a load of people have pulled in, you can then force eject those crews out of there to be able to choose the ones that you want. So you do have complete control over your ship. And of course, worth talking about those permissions as well. Update name, update description, as we'd normally get. Then we have the permissions. These are set as add products, remove products, and station crews. And you can do this publicly, privately. You can use your allow list like you would with other buildings in order to do those things. And under the ship settings, you can also list the ship for sale if you really wanted to. This is how you put a ship on the market. You just set your price here and then hit update. Obviously, I don't want to sell this. I'm quite happy having a vessel. I'm not using it much at the moment, but eventually I will be looking to set up a new enclave and looking for things like calcite deposits at a higher percentage than the 6.4 to 9% that I've got in this area. So that is something I will do in the future. Basically use this as a little colony ship to start up a new enclave somewhere else on a Dahlia Prime. And that's spaceships. How cool is that, right? It's really simple. It can be used as a taxi for crews, for cargo. It can be used for all kinds of crazy stuff, like setting up a new base of operations on the same asteroid or on a completely different asteroid, much faster than you would, obviously, when it comes to like using surface transfers. Like, yeah, I could, scroll right the way out, move to the other side of the planet and just do surface transfers. But that's going to take hours to move all the stuff that I currently have. Whereas here, you've seen how quick it is to launch and how quick it is to land. It's really, really that simple. Yes, of course, we haven't talked about the wonders of going from asteroid to asteroid and needing to look at the different orbits and the amount of time in space and things that you are going to go between those, because some of those can take literally months to travel between. Yes, be warned. If you are literally the opposite side of the asteroid belt in real time, then it may take literal months. But if you were to wait until those orbits coincide closer, you can get shorter journeys. Just, real world science in a video game. Yes, more of that, please. Anyway, folks, that is Spacecraft for you today. Hopefully that has proved insightful. Otherwise, well, hopefully it's proved insightful. If it has, hit like, subscribe, join the channel. You know how to support me. Happy sailing, and see you in a Dahlia.